Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Better Caring webinar. Before we get started, I just thought I'd deal with some housekeeping. You'll notice that there's a chat box located at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to ask questions as the presentation progresses. And at the end, we're going to answer as many questions as we can. If you do miss anything, don't worry. This is being recorded and it will be available off our website, and in addition we're going to email out a copy of the recording to people that have participated today. So today we're talking about consumer directed care and home care packages and how Better Caring enables people to get the most out of their government funding. I hope at the end of this presentation you understand what consumer directed care means to you and how you can take advantage of the reforms and how you can potentially tailor the care and support around your life. By way of background, I don't come from the aged care sector. I originally was involved in founding Better Caring. My name's Peter Scott, for those of you who don't know me. But I was involved in founding Better Caring because of the circumstances and situation my family experienced looking after mine, mum and dad. So a few years ago, I found myself in a situation where dad was in his early 90s and very frail. Mum was in her mid-80s with dementia that was getting progressively worse. They lived in the country at home. They wanted to remain at home. And my older sister was the primary family carer for probably very similar circumstances to many people listening today. We had some limited government subsidised services. And when I used to go home to see mum and dad, I'd often hear dad complaining about the number of different workers that were being rostered through the house. And he, being a very private man, found that quite confronting, and started to say to us, we don't need these people in our home, we can cope on our own, which clearly they couldn't, and that was putting more and more burden on my sister. So I started to take more of an interest, and what I quickly also realised was when we started to look for supplementary care, that going to providers that were in the market at that time was going to be $48 to $50 an hour to purchase services ourselves privately to top up the care. And workers are often earning something in the low $20 an hour. And for my father and mother, it became critically obvious that they didn't want to lose control by having workers in the house, and who came into the house was very, very important to them. So based on a background I had in technology and startups, we knew that technology could potentially offer a solution and a way of organising this marketplace that was far more powerful for consumers and workers. And that led to us founding Better Caring. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Better Caring later on in the presentation. So I thought we might start right at the very beginning just by talking about what is a home care package. And most of you would know that it's a government subsidised program, provides long-term support, or funding if you like, to help older people to remain living at home independently. There's about 80,000 home care packages that the government has available today. There's about another 20,000 that will be coming to market this year. So we'll have about 100,000 people accessing home care packages. There is a cap on the number of home care packages. And so often people are on waiting lists, even if they've been assessed as eligible for a package, they're often on waiting lists until they can actually receive a package. People have probably heard of the term consumer-directed care. I hope they have. So consumer-directed care is a recent and very significant government reform. And what it's trying to do is put people with a home care package at the centre of the market and empowering them with consumer choice so they can choose and purchase the services that are right for them. And there's two key objectives that the government's hoping to have as outcomes. One is it wants to improve the outcomes for ageing Australians. People want to remain living at home and they want to live there with dignity and choice and control, and the government's recognising that in these reforms. The second thing I think the government's hoping for is that by giving consumers purchasing power, if you like, that will cause the market to respond with better value services and also more diverse and innovative options for people so they can find what's right for them as they age. But 74% of the people we speak to have little or no understanding of consumer-directed care. So if people are going to get a better outcome from this government initiative and this government reform, and if the market is going to respond with better value solutions and more diverse solutions, then it's not going to happen if people remain uninformed. And so we're going through a process of trying to talk to consumers about these reforms, how great they are for consumers, how great they are for workers, and letting people know how they can take advantage of what the government's now offering them, and how innovative options like better caring can start to play a real role in people being able to manage their own care and support around their life. So at the heart of the government reforms, consumer-directed care reforms, I break it down into 4 key pieces of value for consumers. One is the government is making more funding available for people that want to remain living at home. As I mentioned, overwhelmingly, that's what people prefer, just like my parents wanted to remain living at home. So more funding in the form of more home care packages. So there's about 80,000 today. It'll be 100,000 this year. That's going to 140,000 over the next few years. And there's many calls for the supply of home care packages to be uncapped, and that's being considered and looked at the moment. The second aspect of the reform that's really important is consumers now have individualised funding. So when you have a home care package, you have funding that you can make decisions with that improve your life. The third part of the reform is you get to choose what services are important to you. And the fourth aspect is you can actually choose who delivers those services, including having choice around individual workers that come into your own home and into your own environment. So there's been a series of reforms that have been underway for some time, and they'll continue over the next couple of years. Back on July 1st, 2015, all home care packages became consumer-directed care packages. So they had individualised funding, and consumers had a right to make choices about services and who delivers those services. But those packages since that date are still controlled or, if you like, attached to the approved provider that won the package in a tender. So although you had choice as a consumer, you still had to work with an approved provider and get them to support the choices you wanted to make. For some providers, they were more progressive than others in supporting consumers around, choice. There's a very important change happening on the 27th of February later month. It's been talked about for a long time, but finally it's here. And that change is that the package, the CDC package, now follows the consumer, not the provider. So everyone that has a home care package today that the provider's been controlling in the past, after February 27th, the package attaches to you. And any new packages awarded after the 27th of February are going to be given directly to a consumer. Now, whether you have an existing package or whether you can receive a package after February 27th, you can now choose to move that package to any provider that's an approved home care provider. So you get to choose providers based on the things that are important to you. So under the old model, I like to think of this as providers were in control. So the government was delivering funding to approved providers. They were delivering services to people in need who are largely passive recipients of those services. And the providers were very focused on competing for the government funding. They would go through a tender process to try and win packages. When they won those packages, there was more demand than supply. So they were in a very... That's been turned in its head because the new model is one where consumers are in control. So the government is now providing individualised funding to consumers that have a home care package. They are now active, powered consumers. You get to purchase services from providers based on the things that are important to you. And for the first time ever, approved providers are really competing for your business. And that's a very big change in the market. Again, under the old model, traditional providers generally delivered everything under the package. So they would do the administration of your funding, they would do the case management, and they would deliver the services. Again, we'll start to see those the role of the provider start to unbundle. So on one level, they'd be administering funding. At another level, they'll be offering case management services. And finally, they may or may not be the person delivering the services. So you get to choose what's important to you. So if you're looking at somebody that's going to host and administer your funding, then I think you'd like to know that they're efficient at doing that they have relatively low administration fees, and that if you wanted to switch providers, they have no or low exit fees. When it comes to case management, that's really becoming client advice. They're really, trying to advise you on how you can get the most out of your funding and what's important to you in your life. And I guess in any form of advice, you'd like that advice to be independent of service delivery. So it's really focused on what's important to you. Also, with case management or client advice, you'd like them to offer you tiered options. So if you need a lot of case management or you need a lot of advice because of the complexity of the situation and there's not a lot of family or support around the person, you might have to spend more for the advice. If your situation is not that complex and there's lots of family that are motivated to be involved, then you might not need a lot of advice or case management, and you shouldn't have to pay for it if you don't need it. And when it comes to services, really the provider should now be supporting you with open access to and choice of services. So what services do you want? When do you want them? Delivered by somebody that you're choosing. So these are very important changes in the market. So what does that mean for consumers? It means you now have more choice and control over the services you receive and who provides them. And I think the other thing that's really important is the more informed you are around consumer-directed care and how it works, you can receive a much better deal. You can achieve a lot more with your funding, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. For consumers, and we've been speaking to many consumers over the last 2 years that have been coming to our website wanting to exercise choice and control over their life, over their support and their care. The one thing that becomes very obvious is, people that want to remain living at home, they want to age well, and what that means for one person is very different to the next. So for some people, it's all about being connected to family. For others, might be being connected to nature and be out walking and exercising. For others, it could be a glass of wine and a meal with friends. So all of us have individual needs and preferences, and again, the government is trying to recognise this in the consumer-directed care reforms to put you at the centre of your life, buying the services you need. Now, in order to do that, real choice is important, and we talk a lot at Better Caring about real choice, where the consumer is at the centre of the decision-making process. They're informed, they have easy to understand information, they have diverse options, it's easy to make choices, easy to change your mind, and there's a positive approach to people taking reasonable risk in their life to achieve a better outcome. And all of those things to us are real choice. Quality of services is obviously important, and at Better Caring, we think we're at the forefront of improving quality through impacting the motivations and attitudes and values and responsibilities of workers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Equally important when we talk about quality is the cost of services, because ultimately quality is all about quality of life. It's about quality of services and cost of services. So if you can purchase more services with your funding, that will directly impact quality of life. So you've got to have an eye on both things. The other thing that we know is relationships matter, and the relationship between consumers and workers is fundamental to great care and support outcomes, and it should be a relationship that both parties are benefiting from and are able to have choice and control around. So getting started with a home care package, just to recap on how do I get started. Well, the starting point to access any form of government subsidised or funded aged care services is the My Aged Care website, myagedcare.gov.au, and the National Contact Centre, and the website and the phone number there on the screen. So that is a process of inbound referral. When you contact the My Aged Care Contact Centre, they're doing two things. They're registering you as somebody interested in aged care services, and they're also doing an initial screening over the phone. Now, depending on the screening process and their understanding of your level of need, you'll be sent in one of two directions. The first direction is for a regional assessment service. So you'll be sent to a regional assessment service to be assessed for Commonwealth Home Support programs. That's if you have basic level or low level needs. There's quite a lot of diverse services you can receive, from Meals on Wheels to community transport to domestic assistance. So there's quite a long list of things you can get to help you remain living at home. If your needs are more complex and more, ongoing, you'll be sent to an ACAT assessment, aged care assessment team in your local area. They will do a one-on-one meeting with you to assess where you are in your life and what you need to continue living at home. And based on that assessment, they will assess you as eligible for a level 1, 2, 3 or 4 package. And you'll see in that green box there in pink, those level packages and home care packages are what we're talking about today. So when you receive a level 1, 2, 3 or 4 package, as we talked about earlier, that has individualized funding attached to each package. So if you have a level 2 government home care package, for example, the government subsidy is worth $14,633 per annum, or $40 a day. If you're assessed as having a level 4 need and you have a level 4 package, it's almost $49,000 of annual funding, or $133.99 a day. So these are fairly significant amounts of funding that are available to you to get the support you need to live your life at home. But in addition to the government subsidy, there's now a concept of contributing to your package. And the amount you have to contribute to your package is based on your income. So if you're a full pensioner earning less than $25,792 per annum, then the maximum contribution you can be asked to make is $3,624. It works out at $9.97 per day. But if your income is higher than that, for example, if you're a part pensioner between $25,000 and say $50,000, then you will be asked to make an income-based contribution that's capped at about $5,000 per annum. And if you're what is called a self-funded retiree, so you're earning more or less over $50,000 a year, then you'll be asked to make the maximum contribution, which can be $1,375 per annum. And there is a lifetime cap, so if you're contributing to your package over many years, it's capped at about $62,500. The other thing you'll notice when you look at the different level packages, although the government subsidy increases as the package level increases, your contribution doesn't change. And I'm going to talk about why that's an important factor to consider in a moment. So just again to recap here, in that first column regarding your contribution, that's the basic daily fee. It's $9.97 per day, but the provider can waive the collection of that fee. And if they do waive it, it's not going to affect the amount of government subsidy. So if if you have a level 2 package and the provider decides to waive the fee from $33, or if you're a level 4 package and the provider decides to waive the fee, you'll still get your $48,906. So it's quite common now for providers to waive the fee almost as a way of attracting a consumer to them. It doesn't cost them anything, and it obviously is a benefit to the consumer. The second two columns, they're income tested fees. Now, those fees are going to vary based on your financial circumstances. So Centrelink, there will be a form you'll have to complete, and Centrelink will do an assessment of that income and come up with the fee that you're required to pay. That cannot be waived by the provider, so they have to collect it. And whatever fee they have to collect, that directly reduces the government subsidy. So I'll show you that in a slide in a minute, just so that's clear. So for example, if you look at a level 2 package, the government subsidy is $14,633. If you're a self-funded retiree paying the maximum amount of $10,416, that contribution you make will deduct from the government subsidy. So you'll be contributing $10,416, and the government will be contributing about $4,000 to your total package of $14,633. Now, if you contrast that with a level 4 package, again, if you're a self-funded retiree contributing the maximum, you're going to be asked to contribute that same amount, $10,416. That'll come off the $48,000, so the government will be contributing about $38,000 to your package. So clearly there's a much greater incentive for a self-funded retiree, for example, to take up a level 4 package than there is to take up a level 2 package. In fact, with a level 2 package, because of the provider administration charges and other overheads, the self-funded retiree would likely be better off taking their $10,000 and privately paying for services. So because of this situation, it explains why there are very few level 3 or level 4 packages in the marketplace that are available. They're hard to find because they're typically always taken up. But you will hear people say that there are a lot of level 2 packages around because a lot of people aren't taking up level 2 packages because of the level of contribution they're asked to make and because of some of the fees attached to packages, which mean that the number of hours they're receiving it's not compelling to take up the package and go through the process of income assessment and making these contributions to your package. So getting the most out of your home care package. So you've got individualised funding. You may or may not be having to make a contribution to it, but what should you be thinking about to try and get the most out of your package? So from our perspective, by being more informed and taking more control over your package, you can get significantly more hours of care and support every week. You can build relationships with workers you're choosing, and I think that's critically important. And you get to find the support you need in your life from within your local community, and you get to build a team of support that's right for your life. So as a starting point, you've got to make sure you know these things. So know what package level, pool of administration and casement service. In the area of $45 to $50 an hour. Those workers might be earning a lot less than that, sometimes below $20 an hour plus super. On platforms like Better Caring, where you're connecting directly with workers, you might find that workers on average are around $35 an hour, considerably less than $48 an hour. Knowing how much you're paying per hour is another critical factor, because the more money you have left over for services and the less you're paying per hour directly relate hours of care and support you have each week, and that can impact quality of life. And what I'm not saying here is that providers obviously have to charge something to administer the package, but that will vary on their level of efficiency and their level of ability to use technology in their process. Similarly, case management, it may be money well spent if you have a complex situation and not a lot of family around you, but really what you're looking for is providers that offer tiered options, so you don't have to buy a lot of case management if you don't need it. Also, now that you've got individualised funding and a right to make choices, start to think about what aging well means to you or your family member, and what types of care and support you need to age well, and who do I know in my networks that I might want to involve in my care. Because aging well is not just about having domestic assistance or personal care all the time, but it may be having the support to engage in your community and do the things that you've always been passionate about throughout your life. And if you're able to purchase more hours of care and support with your money, suddenly all those things start to become possible that you may not have been able to purchase previously. So again, from the 27th of February, you have the freedom to shop around for a provider that's offering you the best deal. You have an ability to what people are starting to call self-direct your funding, or take more control over your funding. You have an ability to access new options like Better Caring at our website, bettercaring.com.au. And for some clients that are taking more control, that are informed, they've been able to do a number of hours of care and support that they've been able to purchase from their existing government funding. So I wanted to run straight into an example of how Fran has doubled the hours of care for a mother using Better Caring. And this is actually a real example. So Fran was receiving a level 4 home care package. It's almost $48,906. This was for a mother. And they were receiving less than 12 hours of care through a traditional provider. Now, the reason that was occurring was out of the $48,906, they had an administrative charge of $13,720. They also had a case management charge of $6,200. So between the pink section of that bar chart and the orange, over 40% of their funding was being lost in those charges, and that left about $28,000, $29,000 available for services. And the provider was charging $48 an hour. So when you do that maths, you end up with 11.5 hours of care and support a week. So I've just lost one, just lost a graph there. It's showing up in my screen, but you can't see it for some reason. So I'm not sure, I've got a little bit of a hiccup with the slides, but what I was going to show you is that what Fran's been able to do through moving to a provider that works with Better Caring, through taking more control over choosing and scheduling her workers, they were able to reduce their administration charge. And I'm not sure if you're able to see the right graph here, but they reduced that to a number more like $6,000. The case management reduced to a number more like $2,000, and that left almost $38,000 available for services. So I think you can see that, but I can't see that on my screen for some reason. In any case, so instead of paying 40% of the funds for admin and case management, Fran's paying now 20% of her package for those services, has almost 80% of her funds available for services, and she's able to engage workers of a choice via Better Caring for $35 an hour. The result of that is that Fran's getting 22 hours of care and support from that same government funding that previously she was getting 11.5 hours from. So, 11.5 hours versus 22 hours each and every week makes a material difference to somebody's quality of life. So suddenly you can start to think beyond the basics that you might have been dealing with in the past around domestic assistance and personal care, and start to think, well, if mum or dad had an extra 10 hours a week, what could we do with that 10 hours to improve the quality of her life? And I think that's a really exciting proposition. So it's really simple maths that we're dealing with here. You have a pool of individualized funding, you've got certain administration and case management charges and certain fees left over for services and an hourly rate that you pay. And when we look at a lot of our experience over the last 2 years of people coming to the platform with home care packages, level 2, level 3, level 4, you can see in this graph that often a level 2 package, people have been typically getting 2 to 3 hours a week from a traditional provider. Now, working with a progressive provider and Better Caring, we'd expect that they get 5, 6 or 7 hours a week. At a level 4, typically we see providers delivering 10 to 12 hours of care and support from a level 4 package. When people take control and work with a progressive provider, we're seeing them able to get anywhere from 18 to 22 hours out of that same pool of funding. That's very significant. Your previous slide here, package and your charge needing to pay for it, and providers are now offering tiered case management. That's leaving more money available for services, and by engaging workers directly, the worker you can pay less per hour while the worker can actually earn more at the same time. So I'll just skip back forward. So that brings me to talking a little bit about what is Better Caring doing. So we have built an online marketplace that enables consumers to find, connect with, and directly hire care and support workers and nurses. So it's a platform that gives consumers diverse choice and control over who supports them, while care and support workers also have choice, and they can feel more valued and fairly compensated because they're getting to work for consumers that choose them, and they're choosing to accept the engagement. And because it's all happening directly and there's no middleman involved, then the savings can be shared between the consumer and the worker. And often, if you look at just services being charged at $45 or $50 an hour, and workers often earning something in the $20 an hour, there's quite a big gap that can be shared between consumers and workers, and both can be better off. So I like to think about us as an enabling technology platform. We're enabling communities to better care for and support people in their community. It could be the community of Bondi in Sydney, it could be the Greek community, it could be the LGBTI community, but we can bring communities together around care and support locally. So this is an online place where people can gather, they can connect, they can transact, they can build relationships, and they provide feedback on that experience. And for people that are engaging with each other via Better Caring, it's very empowering. You get to choose. It's efficient. You know, it's people connecting directly. It's transparent. And you get very diverse options, so you can find people that are right for you in your local community. On the platform today, we've approved over 1,200 workers, and I'll talk about the process we go through a little bit later. But there's over 1,200 workers we've approved. About 850 of those workers are visible. So when you come to our website and you're looking for workers in your local area to care for and support a family member, you can look at the profiles of 850 workers that are approved. But we're also able to help you use workers that you might know in your existing network and community that you might like to be involved in your care. And increasingly, consumers, you know, are looking at people they know in their local community that they feel very comfortable working with and asking us to onboard the worker onto Better Caring, and we will go through a process of checking police checks and reference checks and putting insurances in place that allows a consumer to engage workers of their choice. So it's a very sort of straightforward process using the platform. We call it a three-step process. You go on the website to find workers that might be suitable. You connect with those that you think are suitable and arrange to do a telephone interview or meet with them in person, and then you simply engage them through the website. So when you go through a process of searching in your local community by postcode or suburb, you'll see a whole bunch of people come up. You can filter through those people on all sorts of criteria that might be important to you, whether it's qualifications or experience or interests or whether somebody's pet friendly. You can turn on these filters and narrow your search results. You'll see that in this particular case, Jessica, she has a 5-star rating from consumers. She also has a gold badge on her profile. And you can see some symbols there that may be a bit hard to see, but you can see that, you know, she works with people that have a disability, she's a non-smoker, she's pet friendly, etc. If you like the look of any particular worker, you can click on Jessica or another worker and you'll see their profile in more detail. There's a lot more to this profile than what we're showing on the screen here, but in this case, John describes himself. You can look at his qualifications. You can look at the feedback on him. He indicates his hourly rate. You can see his work history and experience. If you like the look of John and you want to have a further discussion with him, that red contact button in the corner, you can click on that and you'll go into a chat with John and you can start to discuss with John your needs of whether he might be suitable. At that stage, you might want to share phone numbers and have a phone call or meet at a local cafe to talk through your requirements a little bit further and his background and experience and interests, etc. If you do decide that you want to move forward with John, there's a very simple process by which John sends an offer to you through the platform and which you accept. And that offer will set out the hourly rate that you've agreed for the particular services and any details around that service delivery, and you accept that through the Better Caring platform. Every time John delivers service, he completes an electronic timesheet. That timesheet comes to you for acceptance, and once you've accepted the timesheet, payment also occurs through the platform. So we collect payment on behalf of workers via the platform. If it's a consumer paying privately, we might collect that through a direct debit or through a credit card. If it's a consumer paying through a home care package, we'll go and collect payment from your approved provider that's hosting your package. And at all times, you know, consumers can see these timesheets, workers can see their own record of services delivered, and they can see whether the timesheet's been approved, whether payment's been collected, and whether payment's been made to the worker. So this all happens in a very simple way online. So through this process, you get to choose who you work with, what services they're providing, when they come, whether to negotiate the rates, whether to continue the relationship. You have a direct discussion and dialogue with care and support workers that you have formed a relationship with. If at any stage it isn't working, both of you can just acknowledge it's not working. I think that's an important part of a positive care and support relationship, is it has to work for both parties. So we are running our marketplace with a strong commitment to safeguarding our community. So it's run with a lot of checks and balances. There are insurances in place on behalf of all the workers. So while they're delivering services to clients through the Better Caring platform, they have professional indemnity, public liability, and group personal accident cover. Everyone on the platform has to have a current police check. It has to be not more than 3 years old. We check those police checks as part of people building profiles. As they build, the workers build profiles about themselves. They have to upload certain other information. So if they're delivering personal care, they'll need a certificate 3 or 4, an equivalent qualification, which we'll check. Offering nursing services, we'll check their nursing registration. So there's a whole lot of information that's provided. They also have to provide references. We check those references as part of the onboarding process. Once they've gone through this strict onboarding process and we're comfortable, we can approve their profile and it's live on the site. So that's the 1,250 workers we've approved, of which about 850 are visible. In addition to what we call these core standards, which are very similar to what happens in the industry, one of the other important things about these marketplaces like Better Caring is they're community or consumer regulated, if you like. So every worker that's delivering services to a consumer is subject to ratings and reviews. So consumers can rate that experience from 1 to 5 stars, and they can provide a review which we moderate. Now, you know, what that means is that people engaging via the platform, you know, workers engaging via the platform, have to earn and maintain the trust of the community in order to be effective. So workers on Better Caring have to be there for the right reason, or they won't be there for long because they won't be able to maintain a client and they won't be able to build a client base. So I think that's critically important in the way these platforms operate. So we have a lot of experience now with consumers engaging workers directly off the platform, and I thought I'd share with you just some examples and testimonials. Vijaya engaged a worker off the platform for a mother. They made a choice together, the mother and the daughter, based on a cultural connection, which was really important to them. That's quite common. Culture, languages are critically important as people age. I think it's a great story. Carol engaged a worker for father Jack, who has dementia. His life, as Carol would say, is improving. The care worker often picks Jack up. They go to visit a sister he never used to see very often. They go to gallery outings and coffee. So there's a new sort of social life for Carol's father. And she was saying at 91, his life is improving. It's marvelous. Tish, he again uses the platform. He's very confident that his workers are there when he needs them. Fran, we talked about that example earlier. A mother's able to get twice the hours of care and support each week out of the same government package. We also operate, I'll just make a note of this, we also operate across the disability sector, so probably about half our clients come to the Better Caring platform from aged care. About half of them come with to the platform with a disability, look for disability support workers. Grant is an enthusiastic user of Better Caring. It gives him the flexibility he needs to live his life. So just to give you an idea of some of the numbers of people using the platform, we've had over 14,000 registered people registering with the website. In fact, that's almost 15,000 today. We've got 850 care and support workers visible and available to be engaged. And the feedback from consumers on workers on the site is a 4.5-star average. So people might at this stage be trying to understand how I work with Better Caring when I've got a home care package. And I just wanted to quickly talk about that so it was a little bit clearer. So we are actively working with progressive providers who are supporting consumer-directed care. They're offering consumers the ability to self-direct or to take more control over their packages. So in that scenario, the approved provider is going to host your package. They're going to host your funding and pay your invoices. But they're allowing you to choose and schedule their own workers via Better Caring. Workers will get electronic timesheets which you will approve. The platform generates invoices on behalf of those workers, and we go and collect payment on behalf of the workers from the approved provider. So all you need to do is be able to choose and schedule and manage the support workers you need in your life, approve timesheets, and we'll be able to go and collect the payment. So when you're looking at your options now that you have choice, you know, for some consumers, using a full service agency is the right choice for a whole lot of reasons. It may be their preference. It may be that the situation is quite complex and there's not a lot of family around them and they feel more comfortable with they have more faith in that model. But equally, we know there are lots of consumers out there that really want to take more control of their funding and maximise what they're achieving with it. So in that instance, if the provider will be hosting and administering your funding, they'll be providing case management. Now, at one level, I'll have to provide a minimum amount of case management to discharge their obligations under the Aged Care Act and to discharge their duty of care. So there will be some level of case management they will have to provide. But whether you want to purchase more case management or more advice beyond that really will depend on your situation. That leaves you free to self-direct your services, if you like. So it leaves you free to use the Better Caring platform to create your team, to work out who you need in your team, choose them and schedule them yourself. And that can be people that we already have on the Better Caring platform, or people you know in your network and your community that you'd like to have as part of your team, and you'd like those workers to onboard on Better Caring and go through our process of approval. So just to recap, with Better Caring, and for those people that have this desire and the capability to take more control of their package and make choices and choose workers and schedule workers, then you can significantly increase the hours of care and support you purchase each week with your money. You can build relationships with the people you choose, and some of those relationships are people you already know in your community and within your network, and you have the flexibility and diversity to build a team or design your care around your life. So the question for people will be, how do I switch providers after February 7th if you already have a package? Well, we're suggesting that one of the things you can do is call us on our 1300 number, and we can connect you with progressive providers that are hosting packages in your area that will support your use of Better Caring and will support your ability to make choices. You'll need to go through a process of reactivating your referral code for home care services, which you can do through My Aged Care, because you'll need that referral code to give to your new provider. You have to go through a process of ceasing services with your existing provider and commencing services with your new provider. Your new provider is going to want to enter into a home care agreement with you, and they're going to want to develop a individual care plan. So I think that's an important part of switching providers. Hopefully the home care is in easy to understand English and doesn't have excessive exit fees if you decide to switch providers again down the track. And also any unspent funds that you have with your existing provider will move over to your new provider. There may be a lag in terms of the time it takes for that to happen. And again, when you're exiting your existing provider and you're talking to them about moving providers, you should get clarification on what their exit. The exit fee does have to be clearly stated in home care agreements. So going forward, it'll be certainly something you'll be keeping your eye on. So the last thing I just wanted to say was, you know, we're asking consumers to also spread the word to other consumers about consumer-directed care and letting them know that these reforms are really great for consumers. If you're informed, you can get better outcomes. In fact, these reforms are really great for workers as well, because consumers now get to choose individual workers. So the value of workers is going to go up with consumers having choice. But also we want people to spread the word about Better Caring, because we're a marketplace model or a community. So the bigger community that gathers around the website, the more choice and diverse choice everyone will have. So the more workers we have, the more services we'll be able to deliver to consumers. The more consumers we have, the more work that will be available for workers on the platform. So I think that brings us to, sorry, I just pressed the wrong button there, but it brings us to the end of the presentation. And as we said earlier, we're very happy to answer questions. I know we've got a bunch of questions that have been coming through. If you've missed anything, we will be sending out a link to this webinar later. If you have any more questions that you didn't ask today and get answered today, please email us at info@bettercaring.com.au. So I'm going to do my best to answer questions that are coming through, and maybe some of the things I say might generate some additional questions. So there's still time to ask them. So does my provider have to agree to let me use workers on Better Caring? Well, that's a really good question, and it's an interesting question, because providers have to put consumers at the centre and respect the fact that consumers have choice. But at the same time, providers are also governed by the Aged Care Act and Home Care Common Standards and their understanding of duty of care. And what that means to one provider can be different to the next. So some providers are very, very good at putting consumers in the better in the centre and supporting them with choice and being progressive. Other providers might struggle to adapt to the current environment. So you may find a provider where, based on their systems and their view of the world, they might find it difficult to allow you to use Better Caring package to for your business just to be a full service provider. So that's what they offer, and you can purchase that if it suits you. Other providers, traditional providers, have a full service offering and a self-service offering. So if you want to use a full service offering, you can. If you want to basically take more control and use Better Caring, you can. They will respond to you based on your preferences. Again, there's another set of, they provide administration, but they actually don't deliver services through their own workforce. So they'll be very supportive of you using innovative services like Better Caring. So the bottom line is, ask your provider if they'll support you with a self-direction option or being able to self-manage your care workers via Better Caring. If they're at all resistant, we're happy to talk. And if they don't offer that as part of their offering to the market, we can talk to you about providers that do. So will the service providers waive their administration fee if they use Better Caring? They won't waive it entirely because there is a cost involved in hosting and administering your funding and paying them. There will be a cost. What cost they're charging really depends on the costs they're incurring and how efficient they are. But generally speaking, if you're doing more of the work and they're having to do less of the work, and we can go and collect payment very simply from them through the platform, then they should be in a position to reduce the level of administration fee if you use Better Caring. And in general, because of competition, providers are realizing they're not going to get away with big administration fees anymore. Consumers are starting to become aware how important the administration fee is in terms of the amount of services they can afford. So generally speaking, providers are going to become more competitive, admin fees are coming down. If you use Better Caring, you should be able to get a lower administration fee than you would if you were using them as a full service provider. How do I port my package on February 27th? My mother is with a provider, but we're not happy with the hours she is getting. So that question may have come up earlier in the presentation before I talked about that a little bit later in the presentation. But you could start the process now of looking at alternative providers. You can't actually port your package until after February 27th, and that's probably the point. Not sure whether you can give notice to your provider now that you intend porting your package after February 27th, or whether you have to wait till after that date. But as soon as possible, you can start looking at providers that might be more suitable. So you can call us today or tomorrow or the next day. We'll talk to you about what providers that we know of that are in your area that would accept the package and work with Better Caring, and you can start the process of deciding whether you want to port their package to them. If you decide you do, you can give a notice to your existing provider. You can reactivate your code via the My Aged Care website, and you can go through the process of entering into a home care agreement with the new provider, developing an individual care plan, and at the same time you can start to look at workers on the platform, create an account of Better Caring, start to look at workers that might be suitable, look at workers in your own community, and you can get yourself prepared ahead of February 27th. Are there good independent case management services that already exist today? So look, that's a very good question. I come out of the financial services industry a long time ago, and so I always have this bias for advice that's independent or impartial. So, they used to say in the financial services industry, you don't want your advice coming from somebody that has a product to sell you. So usually I'd be looking for a case manager that is independent of service delivery. It's not to say that there aren't full service providers that have good case management services, but I always think that there's a little bit more comfort when they're independent. So I would look for providers that aren't necessarily in the business of delivering services, but they're hosting your funding and providing case management. That might be one thing you look at. And certainly some of the new entrants coming into the market, because now that they've introduced consumer choice, there are a lot of providers that didn't want to go through the process of tendering for packages previously. Now they can be approved as a home care provider and they can win clients. So there are new providers entering the market that have a lot of credibility and a lot of relationships with consumers that are wanting to do something new, that are wanting to offer clients something new. And again, they're likely to have a case management that's more impartial. But again, there are a number of good traditional providers that, as part of a full service offering, would have case management services as well. I've got a question here. I've been using Better Caring. I'm really happy, but find not many workers available near Port Macquarie. Many existing workers for providers are worried about registering with Better Caring and offending their agency/provider. Should this improve with the new system? Yeah, so look, we are, as I said before, really a market. We're more effective when you had, like any marketplace, more buyers and more sellers. So you have more consumers looking to engage workers directly and more workers in that area looking to offer services. So in places like Greater Sydney, we have a really big depth of market. We have lots of workers available, lots of consumers engaging workers. That extends up to the Newcastle area, Metro Melbourne, parts of southeast Queensland. It's not surprising in places like Port Macquarie, the market may be more in its infancy. But yes, with consumer-directed care, with the February 27th changes and with consumers having more ability to make choices and move their package if they're not getting the support from their providers, we would expect to see a lot more demand through the Better Caring website. We're expecting to see a lot more demand through Better Caring as the NDIS is rolling out and people are self-managing and plan managing and choosing individual workers. So that demand will drive a bigger supply of workers. And we already have many workers on the platform that work for current providers. They may be casually employed, they may be getting 10 or 12 hours a week from a provider and looking to top up their hours working for their own clients on Better Caring. And I think more and more workers will have the confidence to do that as new models like Better Caring start to gain more and more traction. And I think there'll be less and less resistance of working in a new model like this. Our marketplace model is very common in other industries. It's about empowering consumers and workers and letting them work things out directly. And that is very attractive for some consumers, but not all consumers. And it's very attractive for some workers, but not all workers. But where choice and control is important, then consumers and workers are going to find their way to Better Caring. Is there a list of providers by area so that we can research them? So I understand that there, on the My Aged Care website, there is a service finder ability to find service providers in your area through a service finder function, if you like. And I know that providers are busily filling out that information. So that'll give you a directory list of providers in your area, some of whom will be more traditional full service providers, some of them might be more new entrants. You won't find Better Caring on that list because we're not an approved provider. We don't host packages, we don't do case management, we're just building a website and technology that connects people very effectively. But what we can do is, if you are looking for a provider in your area that would be progressive, have competitive fees, support your use of Better Caring, please ring us. We've got a team of people here that are helping consumers with their process of switching and finding different providers. And we'd be happy to talk through who's available in your area. Yeah, so Better Caring is not widely known in South Australia. Do you plan on addressing this? Yes, we do plan on addressing it. We're a company that's going through a lot of growth, and because it's a marketplace, we're trying to bring people that need care and support in their life together with people that are offering care and support, and we need to bring them together in geographic proximity, and we need to bring them together in time proximity. So we're trying to focus our efforts at the moment in building out the marketplace in certain areas. So we build that supply and demand, and as we gain traction in those areas, we're going to expand the rate of growth across Australia. So consumers signing up in areas where we don't have workers, current workers signing up in areas where we don't have consumers, and we're hoping to put effort into growing our marketplace in all of these communities. But in the near term, if you are a consumer, one of the things you can think about is, who do you know in your community that you might want to care, and ask them to sign up to Better Caring. We'll go through the process of approving them so you can engage them. Similarly, workers in a particular area have a great ability to market themselves and the services they're offering via Better Caring, and try and bring consumers to the platform as well. Okay, a question from another person is that my package provider says that if we want to go with Better Caring, the care worker will have to sign a subcontracting agreement with them. Is that true? Yeah, so for some providers, again, all the providers are developing their own approach to supporting consumers with choice. And they're all interpreting how to meet government standards and meet the consumer's right to choose. And some people are more progressive in thinking through those issues, and others are more sort of stuck in the old world of, the fact that quality in the past has been regulated through compliance with standards, whereas what's happening with quality going forward is, sure, there's going to be a lot of minimum standards where workers need police checks, etc., but it's really about the consumer's ability and right to choose quality. So there's a lot of shifts going on. So some providers will allow their clients to use Better Caring on an understanding of how the platform works and all the checks and balances we have in place, and the right of consumers to give feedback on workers, etc. And they'll reach a conclusion that it's a very reasonable risk under consumer-directed care for a consumer to choose a worker off Better Caring. Others have additional checks and balances they want to put in place, and we have had providers that have wanted to workers that are chosen by a consumer on the Better Caring platform to enter into a form of agreement with them. Now, some of those providers have had their standard subcontracting agreement that they might put in place with another organisation that's 20 pages long. Others have a short 2-page contract that the worker can enter into. So there's no one answer. In fact, there's many providers that won't require that, but there are providers that will require that. We're happy to speak with a provider and talk to them about what others are doing and why. And providers are often looking at trying to come up with solutions that work for their clients. So there might be some scope for us to have a conversation with the provider in question. And if you come here, I'd be happy to do that, for example. How do workers get paid? That's a good question. What about one-off jobs? At present, our providers pay somebody they send to clean gutters, and they charge us double. Well, see, that's one of the real realities of consumer choice, is the services consumers need are very diverse. And it's not realistic that the provider has the right worker in every situation for that job or for that consumer, because it might mean that gutters need to be cleaned, and typically care and support workers don't do that work. Or it might be the fact that, who comes to that work is very important to you, because you'd like to have a connection with that person, or feel that that person respects you and services you in a way that works for you. So it is very difficult for providers to be able to fill consumers' individual requirements through their own workforce, and they often are going out looking for other services. One of the beauties of we're bringing large numbers of people together, and we would hope that we're the place you can come to find those diverse needs from somebody in your local community that's willing to offer it. So on our platform, the workers, when they're creating a profile, they indicate what services they're offering, and they make decisions about their own business and what services to provide. And people specialise. So you'll find on the platform, people provide light gardening services, for example, and may well be happy to clean gutters. And they will do that at the price, the indicative price they have on their profile, and the price they agree for the specific engagement. So yes, you could find workers on the platform that you might need to do a one-off job or a couple of one-off jobs, and schedule them as you need as that particular requirement occurs. Also, similarly, if you know, you knew a local gardener that you thought might be good to clean your gutters, you could always say to them, why don't you sign up to Better Caring, because it would make it easy for me to engage you under my home care package to keep the gutters clean. And of course, you know, the approved provider who's working with you will be, you know, looking at developing an individual care plan that reflects all of these needs and preferences you have. Do we have any control or rights in relation to exit fees? So I know exit fees is on the government's radar, and I did hear from an independent consumer advocate fairly recently that they thought exit fees were going to be capped at $350. And we have not been able to verify this at this stage. I was at a conference last week where providers were there, and with a show of hands, some providers had no exit fee, others might have had anything up to $500, or I think one case $1,000. I suspect the government might want to cap exit fees. I know they're going to want the exit fee clearly articulated in the home care agreement, and I think consumers need to know that they could be charged an exit fee if they switch providers, and to look for it in the agreement and negotiate it when they're in the home care agreement. So I think that brings us to the end of the questions that were in the chat box. We're very happy to answer any further questions, either through emailing info@bettercaring.com.au, or you can call us on our 1300 number. We also have lots of resources on our website and information, but we're very keen to share what we know and try and help consumers be informed. So, you know, if you know of forums where you'd like us to speak, or you know of consumers that would like more information, you can always email them a link to this webinar, and you know, be happy for any feedback on what topics or information we might include in the future. But I appreciate everyone's time, and thank you very much.